talking with Hal Rubino, who today is sitting in
Tingsboro, Massachusetts.
All right, and I am in central western Massachusetts in Belchertown, and we're talking about work that we did at Grupo Bal at the corporate level with the corporate strategists. I'm thinking about how to think about some of the systems work, which we've been doing in other parts of the group for the corporate holding. This is work we did back in 1999. Principally with one of the corporate strategists for Grupo Bal in Mexico, Guillermo Babbitt. So this is a corporate business and leading of a lot of businesses in Mexico. And so it's a few $1 billion of businesses. And we were doing this in 1999 and applying systems thinking to a corporate setting. So this was really the first time we looked at a corporate holding and what is the value of a strategic systems approach. This is a couple of years before we came out with the Managing from Clarity book. So it's still in development. Some initial grasp modeling back then. So those are a little bit of the demographics, and it was done in English. The documentation was done in English. The conversations were in English and Spanish. We had a few at the corporate headquarters, the home of the strategist. We met in Houston once. And so what I'd like to explore for a few minutes is in taking somebody through a strategic process and trying to understand their question of what is the value in the holding of a corporate group, which was new. And one of the only times that we've looked at that question, what were some of the insights that came out during that process in the conversation exploration with Guillermo? So open up to what were one or two of the insights that you remember having on a project that we did 19 years ago?
Yeah. Well, one was, it's very hard. It was hard for one place, the idea of different businesses that were so different in nature. So a metals company from a university to a retail chain, each so remarkably different. It was hard for him to capture how the corporate world could hold all those disparate things together. That was the first thing. And we got to have him see that, which he appreciated. He actually got to the appropriate level of abstraction, detailed enough to see his way into each business, but also through the lens of corporate as it spanned over all of them, which allowed him a second insight, which was how to describe the nature of shared benefit and shared service of a corporate body over these different entities. Is there any? What value would it be? And inside of that, he saw some of the dynamics of being relevant or keeping current. And it was a shared experience, shared learning in one place, be applied appropriately in another. That would seem unlikely, and he found his way to do that through this work.
Excellent, because I think that comes back to a question that you'd been dealing with in a few projects. I can think of at least two right now of the question, or three. What is the value of the corporate group? What is it that we at corporate do other than count income from the separate businesses or the different parts of our network or the different functions within our company? You were seeing that a lot in the different projects you were working on of what is the value that we provide and what is the value of having a holding over all of the thing.
Yeah. And the other part is how to look beyond, not look into the company only, but face outward into the market, into the other places, look to see what's going on. One of the roles of is so on the business was to see what's happening outside of our world, and is there anything we need to watch out for? What can we learn from that's occurring out there? And their role as first alerts or advisors or help and guides to changes in the road that some of the leadership may not be looking at because they're looking at the business on the inside. So it helped create a more permeable skin, if you would, between the outside world and the nature of the business.
That's great. I remember also that in part of the framing of this, looking at corporate governance, there were a series of papers had come out in books recently at that time on the resource-based view of the firm and on corporate approaches to that, with Cynthia Montgomery and others looking at a systemic or resource-based view of corporate governance. So we included in our model of looking at the different business units and how they provided the cost and profit structure of the business. And then what was it in the mix of the different businesses and how they were mixed together that influenced this whole other piece of the risk of future revenues from the corporate, which we then were able to put in as the risk of obsolescence. So you can say we have a lot of revenue today, we have a lot of opportunities to make a lot of money today, and the way we do it can either increase our resilience and decrease our risk of being obsolete in the future, or the way we're doing it is increasing the risk that we won't be able to continue to generate those revenues in the future. That's a way of looking at the basically net present value, or the time discounted value of the money in the future, or those revenues across the businesses, within and across the businesses in the future, by looking at what is the risk of the portfolio not being able to continue in. And what I'm remembering from the systems analysis was also then being able to start distinguishing at the corporate level what are different roles for people who are running the businesses versus thinking across the businesses, implementers versus designers of the whole system.
Right. That's right.
I also remember some of the insights for our co-investor in this process of, as you said, being able to start see. One question is, are we always in conversations about the different businesses at the corporate level, and what are they contributing or not to our portfolio, to our net profit across the businesses within each business, but starting to see what is the corporate governance role in addition to the specific businesses, and what are the leverage points we have within that conversation.
Yeah, not bad for 5 or 6 touch points. Not bad.
That's great. Any other insights you can remember, or shifts that you saw in ourselves or him during the process?
In him, he as I recall, worked very hard at shifting from the traditional linear point of view, which he was deeply rooted in, and unhooking some of his deeply founded ways of thinking. And he actually did get to experience in himself what it looks like to be a little more systemic and take on a bit more interdependent, connected point of view versus pretty straight 1 + 2 always view, and never looking at time delays or space as the elements that mattered. And he got to include those. I think he kept them going forward.
Right, and how he was able to hold that and influence his conversation at corporate as a strategist by being able to communicate that understanding.
Yeah. So he got to challenge some other folks in the room in a way he couldn't have done before, and how they thought and how they processed what they understood was going on. So it helped him. He was the professor, of course. So he got to do that with them too. That was cool.
Wonderful. Anything else that you can think of in the moment?
No, that's about it.
All right. Thank you.
All right.